How to learn English. Leo always felt a knot in his stomach whenever English class began. He longed to speak fluently, to express his thoughts without hesitation, but a crippling fear of making mistakes held him captive. He would often whisper to himself, "I don't want to make mistakes, but I always do." This internal monologue was a constant companion. He frequently pondered, how exactly does one truly begin to learn English effectively, aiming for real communicative mastery in the long run? One day, frustrated by his stagnant progress, Leo stumbled upon an online forum dedicated to language learning. He typed in his desperate question, "How to learn English?" The responses poured in, a mix of advice and shared struggles. Many emphasized that the journey wasn't about perfection, but persistence. This notion was a revelation, beginning to chip away at his deeply ingrained fear of making errors. A recurring theme in the forum was the vital importance of active practice. One user eloquently stated, "Why you should practice speaking English? Because it's a muscle. You can study all the grammar in the world, memorize countless words, but until you open your mouth and produce sounds, that knowledge remains passive." This resonated deeply with Leo's quiet struggle. Leo initially balked at the idea. Speaking felt like exposing his biggest weakness. He pictured himself fumbling for words, mispronouncing everything, and becoming an object of ridicule. Yet, the forum posts were insistent: practice speaking. Even alone, talking to himself, describing his day, or narrating his actions, could significantly boost confidence and fluency over time. He decided to start small. In his room, with the door closed, Leo began describing objects around him. "This is a chair. It is brown. I am sitting on it." It felt awkward and silly at first, but slowly, a tiny spark ignited. He noticed a slight improvement in his ability to form sentences spontaneously, even if they were simple ones. Another piece of advice that caught his eye was about the best way to learn English. It wasn't about a single method, but a combination. Immersion was key, even if not in a foreign country. Creating an English-speaking environment at home, through media and self-talk, could be remarkably effective. Consistency was emphasized as the ultimate ingredient for success. Leo learned that true learning transcends textbooks. It's about living the language, making it part of your daily routine. This meant changing his entertainment choices, switching to English movies with subtitles, listening to English music, and even trying to think in English during mundane tasks. He realized learning was an active, ongoing process, not a destination. The forum also tackled his biggest hang-up, making mistakes. "I don't want to make mistakes, but I always why," he had often silently pleaded. The answers were universally reassuring. Mistakes are not failures, they are stepping stones. They are proof that you are trying, that you are pushing your boundaries, and that you are actively learning and growing. Experts explain that native speakers make mistakes too, just different kinds. The goal isn't flawless English from day one, but effective communication. Embracing errors as feedback, rather than embarrassing failures, transformed Leo's perspective. It allowed him to relax and view each misstep as a valuable lesson, guiding him towards correctness. This shift in mindset was pivotal. It freed him from the paralysis of perfectionism. He started to speak more, even stumbling, knowing that each stumble was part of the learning curve. He realized that the fear of error had been a far greater impediment to his progress than the errors themselves ever could have been in reality. Then came the strong recommendation: why you must read English. The reasons were compelling. Reading expands vocabulary exponentially, improves grammar naturally, and exposes you to different sentence structures and writing styles. It also builds a subconscious understanding of how the language flows, enhancing both comprehension and production skills. Leo began with simple articles and short stories. He didn't understand every single word, but he focused on grasping the main idea. He noticed how new words appeared repeatedly in different contexts, helping him infer their meanings without constantly resorting to a dictionary. Reading became less of a chore and more of an intriguing exploration. Why reading is important was reiterated by countless success stories. It's not just about language acquisition, it's about cultural understanding, critical thinking, and broadening your horizons. Reading provides a window into the minds of English speakers worldwide, deepening your connection to the language beyond mere linguistic rules and structures. As he read more, Leo felt his vocabulary expanding effortlessly. Words he'd only seen in lists suddenly made sense in context. His understanding of complex sentence structures improved, and he found himself recognizing grammatical patterns he hadn't consciously studied. Reading was indeed a cornerstone for comprehensive language development, a truly passive yet powerful method. He also started to observe how other people talk in English. He watched interviews, listened to podcasts, and paid attention to the rhythm and intonation of native speakers. This observation was crucial for understanding natural conversational flow, common idioms, and the subtle nuances that make communication authentic and effective among people. People often use filler words, pause, and even rephrase sentences mid-thought. Their speech isn't always perfectly grammatically correct, especially in casual settings. This observation normalized his own occasional stumbles and made him realize that natural English conversation is much more fluid and less rigid than he had imagined in his head. His next challenge was how to improve your fluency. The forum advised consistent, deliberate practice. Fluency isn't about speaking fast, it's about speaking smoothly and confidently, without excessive hesitation or searching for words. It involves bridging the gap between knowing the words and being able to access them quickly in conversation. Techniques suggested included shadowing, repeating audio immediately after a native speaker, using flashcards for quick recall, and engaging in regular conversation practice. The key was to reduce the processing time between thought and speech, making the connection more direct and spontaneous, much like riding a bicycle without thinking. Leo found that by consistently speaking, even to himself, and actively listening to native speakers, his ability to form sentences rapidly improved. The words started to flow more naturally, and he spent less time translating in his head. This continuous effort slowly but surely chipped away at his previous hesitations and awkward pauses. Then came the daunting question: how to talk with anyone. The forum's advice was simple yet profound: find opportunities. Join online language exchange groups, participate in English-speaking clubs, or even politely ask a native speaker if they'd be willing to chat. The crucial first step is to simply initiate a conversation, no matter how brief. He took a deep breath and joined a local English conversation group. His heart pounded on the first day. He felt clumsy, stumbled over words, and thought he sounded foolish. But to his surprise, everyone was supportive. They understood the struggle, and many were going through similar experiences, creating a safe and encouraging environment for all. Gradually, Leo gained confidence. He learned to use simple phrases to keep the conversation going, asking follow-up questions, and expressing interest. He realized that effective communication isn't just about perfect grammar, it's about being engaged, listening actively, and showing a genuine desire to connect with the other person, fostering mutual understanding. The importance of how to practice English became incredibly clear. It wasn't about intensive, infrequent study sessions, but rather consistent, varied exposure. Daily habits, even small ones, accumulated into significant progress. Listening to English news for 15 minutes, reading a short article, or watching a YouTube video, all contributed meaningfully. He started incorporating English into every possible aspect of his life. His phone language changed to English, he started following English content creators on social media, and he even tried writing his grocery lists in English. This pervasive immersion made the language feel less like a subject to be studied and more like a tool to be used daily. The forum users also emphasized the power of imitation. Observing how other people talk in English wasn't just for understanding, it was for emulating. Mimicking accents, intonations, and common expressions helped him sound more natural. This wasn't about losing his own identity, but gaining a more authentic English-speaking voice. He would listen to a short dialogue from a podcast or movie and try to repeat it exactly, paying attention to rhythm and stress. This shadowing technique, as it was called, felt strange initially, but it trained his mouth and ears to work together, improving his pronunciation and the natural flow of his spoken sentences substantially. Leo now understood that the best way to learn English was a highly personal journey, but with universal principles. It involved a blend of active speaking practice, extensive reading, attentive listening, and a fearless attitude towards mistakes. It was about consistent engagement and finding joy in the learning process itself. He realized that fear had been his biggest enemy. The fear of embarrassment, the fear of sounding foolish, the fear of not being perfect. But by embracing the advice from the online community, he had begun to dismantle those fears one by one, discovering a newfound freedom in his English learning adventure. His "I don't want to make mistakes but I always why" lament had transformed into an understanding that mistakes are crucial feedback. They highlight areas for improvement and show genuine effort. Each error became a signpost, directing him towards better understanding and more accurate usage of English vocabulary and grammar rules. Leo started keeping a small notebook where he jotted down phrases or structures he heard native speakers use. This helped him internalize how other people talk in English and allowed him to naturally integrate these patterns into his own speech over time. It was a powerful tool for observational learning and practical application. He also discovered the power of storytelling in his learning. Imagining scenarios and trying to describe them in English, even if just to himself, pushed him to use varied vocabulary and grammatical structures creatively. This creative practice made learning less about rigid rules and more about fluid expression. The concept of how to improve your fluency was no longer abstract. It was a tangible goal achieved through consistent exposure and output. He noticed that the more he spoke, the less he hesitated. His brain was making faster connections between ideas and the English words needed to express them effectively in real-time conversations. Reading wasn't just about learning new words for Leo anymore. It was about developing an intuitive feel for the language, understanding its rhythm and nuances. Why reading is important extended beyond vocabulary to encompass cultural insights, varied perspectives, and even improving his writing style when he needed to compose something. He began to enjoy the process of deciphering meaning from context when reading, rather than reaching for a dictionary immediately. This active inference strengthened his comprehension skills and made reading more engaging and less tedious. It was a skill that transferred directly to understanding spoken English in diverse situations. Learning how to talk with anyone wasn't about having a perfect accent or an encyclopedic vocabulary. It was about confidence and a willingness to engage. He realized that most people are patient and appreciative when someone is trying to communicate in a second language, creating a supportive environment for learners. Leo started initiating conversations with tourists in his city, offering directions or small talk. These brief interactions, though sometimes challenging, were invaluable. They provided real-world practice for how to practice English in authentic situations, building his confidence and adaptability with diverse speakers. He learned that effective communication often involves asking for clarification or rephrasing if something isn't understood. It's perfectly fine to say, "Could you please repeat that?" or "What do you mean by that?" This approach reduced pressure and made conversations more manageable and productive for everyone involved. The forum's advice on why you should practice speaking became his mantra. Every opportunity was a chance to practice, even if it was just ordering coffee in English or asking a simple question at a store. These micro-interactions compounded over time, steadily building his conversational muscle and reducing his anxiety. He also utilized technology to his advantage. Language learning apps, online tutors, and even AI chatbots became tools for consistent, how-to-practice English sessions. They offered immediate feedback and a judgment-free space to experiment with new vocabulary and sentence structures, making the learning process more dynamic and interactive. Why you must read English was evident in his improved understanding of cultural references and humor. Beyond just words, he began to grasp the underlying context that makes communication truly meaningful. This cultural literacy enriched his conversations and made him feel more connected to the broader English-speaking world. He discovered various genres of English literature, from thrillers to historical fiction, making reading a personal pleasure rather than just a learning exercise. This intrinsic motivation fueled his progress far more than any external pressure ever could, making why reading is important deeply personal and enjoyable for him. How to improve your fluency became a daily pursuit. He would record himself speaking and listen back, identifying areas for improvement in pronunciation or rhythm. This self-assessment was uncomfortable at first, but it offered precise insights into his speech patterns, leading to targeted improvements in his overall delivery. He realized that fluency wasn't about eliminating his accent entirely, but about being understood effortlessly. It was about clear articulation and a natural flow, not mimicking a native speaker perfectly. This understanding took a lot of pressure off and allowed him to focus on practical communication skills rather than unattainable perfection. When considering how other people talk in English, Leo also noted the importance of active listening. People don't just speak, they listen intently, use nonverbal cues, and respond thoughtfully. He started focusing on listening to understand, not just to formulate his next sentence, which significantly improved his conversational flow. His journey truly exemplified the best way to learn English. It was multifaceted, iterative, and deeply personal. There wasn't a magic pill, but rather a consistent application of various effective strategies, tailored to his own learning style and evolving needs as a language learner striving for mastery. Leo's initial frustration, "I don't want to make mistakes but I always why," was now a distant memory. He had learned to embrace every error as a teachable moment, a sign of effort, and a stepping stone toward mastery. This mental shift was perhaps the most crucial lesson in his entire learning journey. He reflected on how to learn English effectively. It wasn't merely about consuming content, it was about active production. Speaking, writing, and actively engaging with the language transformed passive knowledge into usable skills. It was about building a bridge from understanding to expressing himself confidently and clearly. The advice, "why you should practice speaking," had been a game changer. It forced him out of his comfort zone and into the realm of real communication. His vocal cords, once hesitant, now moved with greater ease and precision, reflecting the confidence he had painstakingly built through consistent effort. Why You Must Read English had unveiled a whole new world of knowledge and entertainment. From understanding global news to delving into captivating stories, reading had become a cherished habit that continually enriched his vocabulary and deepened his cultural insights effortlessly. It was a constant source of passive learning. How to improve your fluency wasn't a sprint but a marathon. Each small victory, each smoother sentence, each spontaneous conversation, contributed to a gradual but profound improvement. He celebrated these tiny milestones, motivating him to continue his dedicated practice sessions every single day without fail. He found joy in how to talk with anyone, no longer fearing awkward silences or misunderstandings. He realized that genuine connection transcends linguistic perfection. His improved English opened doors to new friendships, diverse perspectives, and a broader understanding of the world, making every conversation an adventure. Observing how other people talk in English continued to refine his own speech. He learned to pick up on subtle cues, common expressions, and the rhythm of natural conversation, making his own interactions more authentic and fluid over time. It was an ongoing lesson in conversational etiquette and flow. His structured approach to how to practice English involved setting realistic goals, tracking his progress, and celebrating achievements. He diversified his practice methods, ensuring he was constantly challenging himself in new and engaging ways, preventing boredom and maintaining high motivation for consistent improvement. Leo, once riddled with fear and self-doubt, had transformed into a confident English speaker. His journey was a testament to the power of persistence, the importance of embracing mistakes, and the effectiveness of integrated learning strategies. He now spoke English with joy and a profound sense of accomplishment, truly embodying the spirit of communication. The path to mastering English, he concluded, was not a straight line but a vibrant tapestry woven with speaking, reading, listening, and an unyielding willingness to try. His story became an inspiration for countless others struggling with similar anxieties, proving that anyone can achieve fluency with the right mindset and consistent effort.